Okay, that's gonna be part of, it's gonna be awesome video. Let me know when you're ready there, buddy. Hey guys, Riz here, Digit 9. Carburetors. We've had quite a few viewers ask me questions about carburetors. So I'm not sure if too many people know about carburetors, but it's old school, and a lot of the older sleds that guys are picking up have carburetors, and people are having a hard time tuning them. So I'm going to go through what's in a carburetor and why they kind of get out of tune. Let's start with the main jet. So your main jet would be something like this. This is what you see on most newer carburetors, let's say from 75 to, when did they go fuel injection? 95, 2000. This is what you're going to see in there for main jets. There's a couple different variations, but this is your most common. Back to this guy. This is old school. This is from a 75 TX500. So this will be a main jet as well, this little guy here. So this is also a main jet. This runs most of your fueling all the way through your sled, but mostly wide open. This is what controls your heat at the wide open throttle, is this guy. That's your main jet. The bottom end. So on the bottom end of a snowmobile, you're going to be running a pilot jet, which is this guy. This is your pilot jet. Can you see that? That's a pilot jet. Sometimes what I do, when you clean your carburetors, because they've been sitting for a while, I take a little tool like this. This is a torch tip cleaning tool for an acetylene torch. But sometimes, depending on the size of your pilot jet, the smallest little cleaner goes through the needles and you can actually clean them out. Because sometimes you get filled with guck and goop. That's why your sled doesn't idle. So if you buy an older sled and it's been sitting for a long time, chances are those little holes in the pilot jet are plugged up. So you're not getting any fuel through there. Also this main one. Your main one is down the center. That could be gummed up. It's very, very small. I don't even know if you can see it through the lens. There's not much there. But that easily gets plugged up with goop from gas and oil and crap. So take that out and clean it. You got to clean it good or just go buy new ones. You can still get them. Some places still offer them. That's your pilot jet. That runs your idling up to 1/8 throttle, somewhere around there. 1/8 to 1/4. That's what that runs. So that's your pilot jet. So a pilot jet goes in this hole, right there. So this is the bottom of the carburetor. Pilot jet goes in there, and you just screw it in. Well, you screw it out first to clean it. Take it out, and then you screw it back in. So, and then when it gets tight, you don't need to crank it. It just needs to be like finger tight almost. You don't need to get crazy with it. On these old style carburetors, this is where your main jet gets pulled from on the float pole. But on the newer stuff, like I said, from 75 and up, you get something like this. So this one is going to pull out of your float pole, not this one. This gets a lot more fuel to it than this guy. So how do you get fuel in the float pole? Well, fuel comes through your intake, which is this guy. It comes out your needle and seat, which is this guy. So inside here, I'm just going to take this apart for you real quick. Why they call it a needle and seat? Because there's a needle in there. This little guy, they call it a needle. It seats in here and stops the flow of fuel coming through there. Or going up through here, actually. Call it a needle and seat. So sometimes, the bigger the snowmobile, the more fuel you require, Sometimes you need to go with a bigger needle in seat. Most are standard 1.5s, but you can go to a 2.0 or a 2.5. We won't get into that. That's just too much stuff. So that adjusts the fuel in the float bowl. So when the float bowl fills up, boop, that closes it and shuts off the fuel into the float bowl so it doesn't overfill the float bowl. This has to be set level. If you notice on this picture, it's set level, right? So any much farther than that, if the fuel fills this up, it shuts it off. So that's how you get fuel into the float bowl. Then it gets sucked up through the jet in through the needle jet, which is this guy. Inside the needle jet needle, whatever, some guys call it, I just call it a needle jet, is the needle. So now this guy is tapered, if you notice, from start to finish. This adjusts your fuel through the range of your throttle position. So this is in your needle jet. So when you pull on the throttle, this opens up to give you more fuel coming out of here. So the higher you pull it, the more fuel you get because the needle is tapered. What happens a lot of time is this wears just from the shaking of the snowmobile, and it doesn't take much, like 100 thou, not even 100 thou, 1 or 2 thou, and it changes the whole way your snowmobile runs. That's why some sleds don't run good after a while. It's just because they got too many miles on, they vibrate. This is the biggest thing you have to change in your sled. It gets the most wear. That's how you get the fuel up in there. So what it mixes with is air, which comes through your venturi, comes through that. And then, so this is your cutaway. They call it a cutoff, cutaway, basically your throttle body kind of thing. It allows a certain amount of air to mix with your fuel as the carburetor is being opened and closed. So this is where your air comes in through the carburetor. So let's say this is in there. You can see how it's tapered, and it allows air to mix with the fuel coming out of your needle jet. So I mean, there's a bunch of stuff going on here, but that's your basics. Fine tuning is done with an air screw, which is this guy on the side. Normally they want it 1.5 turns is stock. So this allows air to mix with your pilot jet. Mostly for idle. It has nothing to do with top end. So if you want your idle to go up a little bit, just give it a little more air. It mixes with your pilot jet. So you have fuel and air mixing together. Half, 1 turn, 1.5 is usually the standard. Older sleds is 1 turn. The newer ones are 1.5. This, of course, is your idle screw. I'll explain this a little bit more. So your idle screw pushes up on your cutaway, which pulls up your needle jet and allows more fuel to mix with your air, which gives it higher RPM. So this guy pushes right in there. The farther you screw this in, the higher this lifts up, right? Which pulls up your needle. So inside your cutaway is usually your needle. Like that. So your needle sits in your cutaway like that. And then this is inside your needle jet. So as you lift this, more fuel comes out, more air comes out. Air with fuel makes power. Those are the basics, guys, on carburetors. What a lot of people have trouble with is the cleaning, just taking them apart and putting them back together. Normally the parts are okay, it's just they're full of goop and guck from the gas and oil that was in there before. So you got to take them apart and clean them all out. If you know what all the parts do and where they go, it sure makes it a lot easier. Tuning is a whole nother ball game, but hopefully I explained enough to you. If you have any questions, please post your comments below. I'll get back to them as soon as I can. And if you found any of this stuff helpful, please subscribe to our channel and click on that bell notification. Thanks for tuning in.